Cardiff State Beach. Here, local surfers are catching plenty of waves. It's a nice, clean beach, but plastic waste isn't that far away. Large parts of the Pacific Ocean are covered in floating plastic waste. And if you go to a windward beach where they don't clean it up right away, you'll see it washed up on shore in large quantities.
In El Salvador, it was a big rock beach with a lot of tidal flow. And you could tell that there was someone every day that was coming to pick up plastic bottles and flip-flops. And they were trying to clean it, but it was just a constant flow of plastics. And, this stuff was piled up probably like mid-shin in El Salvador. It was pretty gross.
Cook isn't just a surfer. He's president of a company called Blueview Footwear that makes biodegradable sneakers. The science behind Blueview comes from their CEO, Stephen Mayfield, also a distinguished professor of biology at UC San Diego. Recently, Mayfield showed me his lab where pieces of the foamy material that go into his sneakers swirl in vials of liquid. The water is filled with tiny ocean organisms that are invited to eat the stuff.
As we're degrading our foams, we're also starting to isolate the organisms that biodegrade them. So what these are is we've thrown in, I don't know if you can see it sitting in there, but we've thrown in a little piece of our foam, and then these are actually organisms pulled out of the pier down here.
Biodegradable plastics that go into Blueview shoes are made from algae oil. Mayfield says it's ironic that ancient deposits of algae oil have become the petroleum that we mine and turn into plastic.
Yeah, it was super simple, right? It was like plastics come from petroleum, petroleum comes from algae, let's make plastics directly from algae.
Mayfield says scientists who pioneered plastic 70 years ago could have created degradable plastics, but in an effort to make something very durable, they didn't foresee the problem with the plastic waste stream that is now so obvious.
So when we set about to redevelop these things, we said, let's make plastics from algae, but let's make plastics that biodegrade at the end of their life, where the material has a half-life that's proportional to the product.
Based on Mayfield's experiments, the shoes will fully degrade in soil and compost in about 9 months. In the ocean, it'll take about 2 years. These new plastics should have a warm welcome, given the outcome of plastic recycling. Many studies indicate less than 10% of plastic waste is recycled. Most recently, a Greenpeace report estimated only about 5% of household plastics are recycled in the United States. The San Diego company Geno has been bioengineering plant-based plastics for more than 20 years. Company CEO Christoph Schilling, who got his Ph.D. at UC San Diego, says plastic recycling could work, but it requires a clean, pure stream of the same kind of plastic. And that's not what you find in your typical recycling bin.
In fact, most plastics cannot be recycled. So to be relying on plastics recycling as the solution to our plastics waste challenges, it can be a part of the solution, but we need to come up with other alternative approaches.
Geno's materials go into making nylon for apparel. They're also used to formulate cosmetics. A primary building block of their bioplastic products is sugar. Corn kernels, for instance, are packed with sugar.
Our technology is being used today at the core of a $300 million capital project to build a manufacturing facility in Iowa that will take corn produced from American farmers and convert that into a large volume chemical that makes materials that we will find in a range of different products.
Geno technology is being used to make biodegradable plastic bags at a plant in Italy, but many of the plastic materials Geno makes from plants do not degrade. Schilling says it's unrealistic to say we can phase out non-degradable plastics altogether. Mayfield, with Blueview, says he would never put degradable plastic in a boat that's constantly exposed to water.
But equally, it's kind of silly to make plastics that are going to last for 1,000 years and then put those into a car that might last 20.
Meanwhile, consumers and governments have choices to make about what kinds of plastic they will allow in the marketplace. A new California law signed last year says grocers must provide compostable pre-checkout bags, the kind you put your lettuce in, by 2025. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.